First, I want to say a few words to everyone. Then I will talk about the Lotus Sutra. Today's topic for us to discuss is, in particular, the Lotus Sutra. So, what do I really want to say first? Mainly, I want to mention that I have already arrived at Larung today. I am at the Institute addressing the Dharma friends. This process is also completed through the network, which acts as a channel for communication and connection to teach the profound and important Lotus Sutra. Before that, I just want to say a few words about our institute. It should be said that now all four groups of practitioners are all very diligent in listening, contemplating, and practicing the teachings. From last year up until now, for the vast majority of people out there, it seems that this particular voice might sound just a bit unfamiliar to you, but that's completely okay, and nothing to worry about at all. It's fine. You'll gradually get used to it, because this winter I was on break and also doing some translation work, and later, unfortunately, due to personal health reasons, unfortunately, I wasn't able to return to the Institute before the required time. It's been almost half a year. I think I left the mountain, if I remember correctly, last December. During this period, the Khenmos, and Dharma teachers at our Institute have all been very dedicated, consistently teaching the Dharma to everyone. Almost every Khenmo, and Dharma teacher of each class, in particular, except for a few very special cases, has not stopped teaching. There has been no situation where classes were not held. This is really excellent. One of the most distinctive and defining characteristics that truly sets our institute apart from others is this. You could also say that, in a way, it's a very unique tradition of ours. So we also very much hope that the lineage disciples of Lorong Five Sciences Buddhist Academy do not necessarily have to have a personal root guru or have to necessarily have their own Dharma center. More important is having a systematic approach to listening, contemplation, and practice. No matter which school or lineage someone belongs to, this is very important. So first of all, I would like to especially thank the Dharma teachers for always truly, regardless of whether it's winter or summer, especially when I'm away for a long time, I always keep it in mind, and I'm genuinely, constantly, and deeply concerned about it. Always the listening, contemplation, and practice here at the Institute. The relevant Dharma teachers and administrative staff also communicate frequently. I am also very satisfied with this process. And our Dharma friends have been very diligent in their listening, contemplation, and practice. This is something I am grateful for. To all the Dharma friends who have contributed to listening, contemplation, and practice, and to those who combine study with altruistic motivation, some have been dedicated to the Institute or to various activities in different places and have always worked hard. There are so many acts of altruism, as everyone knows. So I am especially grateful to all those who have made altruistic efforts. Perhaps your contributions are not always visible, but in reality, they can be felt and experienced. So this is also something very meritorious and meaningful. And I am especially grateful to all of our, including those who generously volunteer for every single lecture we have now, those who listen to the classes online, and those who attend in person. Some have consistently attended classes without interruption, and some who may be here only temporarily. No matter what, I warmly welcome especially since not too long ago we actually took the time to study the Medicine Buddha Sutra together. At that time, I was still unwell, but I felt the merit was immense. So in the cities outside, through live broadcast, this allowed us to offer the lineage and teachings to everyone interested. The results at that time were also overall quite good. This time, we are preparing to teach the Lotus Sutra as well. During the process of listening to and receiving the Lotus Sutra, I also hope that, especially for some Khenpos and Dharma teachers in our institute, as well as some dedicated Dharma friends who truly and sincerely aspire to promote the 8 major schools in the future, if all the necessary conditions are indeed present, I have no other requirements when listening to the Lotus Sutra, especially for those who wish to spread the teachings to others. You can come to the Dharma Hall. Of course, if the circumstances or various conditions do not allow, you can also, if you wish, take part in this event through audio or through video. This is just the very first thing that I really wanted to say. The second thing is, during the process of our teachings, as we go along step by step, discussing the Lotus Sutra, and tomorrow we should be covering the ornament of Mahayana Sutras. No class on Wednesday. On Thursday and Friday, we'll study Lotus Sutra, ornament of Mahayana Sutras. This is simply the preliminary arrangement for this week. However, I may not necessarily teach very well sometimes, especially since I have just arrived at the Institute. It seems I'm also experiencing a bit of altitude sickness. There are a lot of things going on, many matters. Many things are happening both inside and outside. So during my teaching, as a teacher, because it feels like for some reason after arriving here, even now, I still feel a bit dizzy. It's a rather unique kind of sensation, I suppose, in a way, if you think about it, in some respects. In this state, I'm not sure how much I'll be able to teach. But I think today, being the first day of the Tibetan calendar, is also an auspicious day. At this point, we will now begin our detailed study of the Sublime Dharma Lotus Sutra. I won't cover much. I'll just talk a little bit about the title, or perhaps maybe briefly introduce the translator. Either one is perfectly fine with me, whichever you prefer. In the next class, we'll gradually proceed to continue with the teachings as we have been doing. That's just my way of doing things. As for other matters, I think it's absolutely fine to talk about them gradually, step by step as well. Actually, there isn't much to say. Some of you might really truly want me to say this, or perhaps even that. You want to hear this, you want to hear that. But that's just how people are really. Sometimes, even if you really want to hear something, I might not necessarily want to say it. So let's just talk in general terms for a moment this time about the famous Buddhist scripture known as the Lotus Sutra, Sublime Dharma, Lotus Sutra, Lotus Sutra. Beginning to teach and study this text is very meaningful for both teachers and students. I myself am personally especially happy about it. I think that in my lifetime, if I can successfully and fully complete the careful transmission of this important teaching, I should feel content. Mithram Rinpoche once said, when you're sick in a cave, no one comes to ask about you. When you die, when you're sick, no one asks after you. And when you die, no one mourns you. If you die in a cave or alone, as a yogi, I am fully content. That's what he said. But for me to go into a cave and practice such austerities might not be possible. So what would make me feel content? If I can teach the Sublime Dharma Lotus Sutra and transmit it to everyone, of course, today we have a very large number of people here, but the number of participants may decrease. Sublime Dharma Lotus Sutra taught, I remember that, if I recall correctly, approximately 5,000 people left. Let's just see how things go in a few days for now. If thousands of people here end up leaving, I wouldn't know either. In any case, I hope that if you have the opportunity and the time, at some point, actually time is something you can make for yourself. Our institute is for listening, contemplation, practice. Most people should definitely have the time, at least in their daily schedule. For city dwellers, some may not be able to make it. Because of your work, some of you in particular have to work night shifts or at home, mainly around 7:30 in the evening. Nowadays, in the city, many people with children have to pick up and drop off their kids, though at that time, it's usually not about dropping them off, but rather that's when many families are quite busy. So for some, there are difficulties. But now, by using various convenient methods to help everyone participate, I really hope you will also treat this as something very important to do in your life. Some time ago, I joked with them attending classes. In our worldly life, even for a regular teacher, for example, if you take an English class or a Tibetan language class, you might possibly have to pay for that class. It's the same in Western countries and elsewhere as well. If you pay for a single class, say you pay 50 yuan, you think I take this class seriously because I paid 50 yuan. You make sure to listen attentively. But when we provide so much for free to everyone, people sometimes just don't really cherish it. Look at movies these days, just 1 hour in the modern theater. Everyone pretty much knows how much a movie ticket costs. At the very least, it's several dozen yuan or more. After you pay, you probably watch very attentively. But the value of our Dharma classes should truly surpass all of that, shouldn't it? That's how I see it. So when everyone attends class together, you should also make sure to listen very attentively, really focusing on what is being said. Treat it as one of the most truly important things in your life. Maybe you understand, maybe you don't, but it truly has a absolutely incredible blessing power. You might not understand, but gradually, over time, you will eventually realize its power. When you understand its inconceivable merits, only then will you realize your choice was absolutely right. So during the process of listening and receiving teachings, if you don't give up, of course, that's excellent. But from what I've personally observed and seen over the past few years through a variety of different convenient methods and approaches, the people who have come to attend these classes are actually quite impressive individuals. Indeed, for several of our earlier courses, like the Way of the Bodhisattva and preliminary practices, there wasn't a chance then. But later on, we also opened up some platforms for everyone to listen and receive the teachings. Throughout this process, everyone has cherished it very much, no matter where they are, even when traveling abroad, at the airport, and even in some cases, due to circumstances and pressure from friends around them, they still use various convenient methods. Of course, I have many different examples that I could give you, but I won't go into any of them right now. There are many ways to listen and receive the lessons, and this is meaningful. So tonight, I won't say much more in the beginning. Let's discuss the Sutra of the Lotus Blossom of the Wonderful Dharma. First, I pay homage to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. I pay homage to the omniscient Longchen Rabjam. I pay homage to omniscient Mipum Rinpoche. I pay homage to His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. Then, just as it is clearly stated in the Aspiration of Samantabhadra chapter, using various worldly languages, including the 8 classes of devas and nagas, humans and non-humans, their own language. I invite those with a karmic connection to join us in person, or in other words, rely on various places where the teachings can be heard. Nowadays, not everyone has to come all the way to Lurung Valley in person. I believe that all the spirits and non-human beings in this world, including asuras, yakshas, and rakshasas, they too can go online as well. they should also be able to attend the teachings from wherever they are, right? If you really don't know how to get online yourself, you can go to places where some lay practitioners know how to access internet and listen to the teachings by their side. They won't know or even see you either. I'm sure that you will, as times change, also have many of your own methods. If sometimes you really can't quite manage it, that's okay too. The profound blessings of the Dharma are always inconceivable. Let us all listen and receive the teachings in this way. And I ask everyone, for the benefit of all sentient beings throughout the world, to temporarily attain sublime happiness of humans and gods, and ultimately achieve the perfect, unsurpassed enlightenment of the Tathagata. We are now quietly and attentively listening to the recitation of the Lotus Sutra. Today, I will briefly talk about some aspects of the Lotus Sutra, including some historical background, merits, and its translations. Let's discuss these aspects in more detail and depth. In fact, the Lotus Sutra itself in our human world is truly, in every possible sense, a rare and precious wish-fulfilling jewel.
This is something we will discover as we continue to study it later on.
Of course, such a profound dharma may only be understood in its deepest meaning by those who possess wisdom. Those with shallow wisdom, and in particular limited knowledge, may not fully and completely understand the truly profound, deeply intricate, and subtle meanings and implications that exist within it. It's just like in our worldly life. For example, Zhuangzi once spoke of many principles, including those related to emptiness, but he also said that such profound principles are not necessarily meant to be grasped by those with inferior wisdom. So when it comes to certain teachings in the world, for example, not everyone truly understands them, really. In other words, what we call the truth is held in the hands of a select few. This statement is, without a doubt, very meaningful, truly significant in its context. The Lotus Sutra, as a matter of fact, is in essence indeed,
among all the teachings the Buddha gave over 49 years, this should be the very last teaching he delivered.
We all know that in the very beginning, the Buddha was the first to teach the Avatamsaka Sutra to his assembled disciples, which, it is said, was taught over a period of 21 days. At that time, many people were unable to grasp its meaning. Later, he taught the Agama Sutras for 12 years. Then he taught the Vaipulya Sutras for 8 years. After that, he expounded on the Prajnaparamita, the teachings on emptiness, for 22 years. In the last 8 years, he taught the Lotus Sutra and Nirvana Sutra. It is worth mentioning that there are several other sources which also record this information in the same way, indicating that this method of, from this we can see that it was during the period when the Buddha was about to demonstrate entering parinirvana. The truly precious and profound teachings left to us, like a wish-fulfilling jewel, the Lotus Sutra. This Lotus Sutra is equivalent to the Uttaratantra Shastra in our Tibetan Buddhism. In this section, the text offers a range of profound and sublime analogies and instructions about the Tathagata Garbha, all of which are intended to help readers better understand that. More importantly, it teaches that all sentient beings will ultimately attain the state of perfect enlightenment. The temporary three vehicles are provisional teachings. The ultimate one vehicle is the definitive teaching. We need to thoughtfully and carefully discern such principles. As for the Lotus Sutra, in today's world, it is important to note that the academic community studies it using academic methods, while practitioners carefully investigate it through the various methods of practice. Of course, academic study encompasses fields such as history, philosophy, and religion, and it can also be understood from a cultural perspective in a variety of different ways. In this way, the Lotus Sutra is actually, in a very real sense, truly and profoundly. This time, we have extremely carefully and specially compiled a rather unique edition of the Lotus Sutra for everyone. This version is somewhat different from the previous Chinese editions of the Lotus Sutra. In the preface, I have already explained why this is the case. I will discuss why later. This time, my main focus is on the Tibetan version, while there are several different versions in Chinese. I have put considerable effort into careful and thorough researching of this matter. The version we are distributing to everyone now may be rather unique, but it is also necessary for us to refer to other essential teachings, as well as other versions of the Lotus Sutra. As for my preface,
A while back, I think it was written around May 8th or something like that. Written on May 8. At that time, things were favorable. Originally, the Lotus Sutra belongs to the Tiantai school. In the past, we really hadn't promoted the Tiantai school very much. This time, we started with the Lotus Sutra. On that day, I also received word that the ancestral temple of the Tiantai school, Guoqing Temple, would provide us with 3,000 copies of their Lotus Sutra. It's 3,000 copies. If we requested them ourselves, we could afford it as well. There shouldn't be a problem. Auspicious circumstances. Indeed, on that day, at that particular moment in time, if they were actually willing to make it available to us, it would be a truly excellent condition, bringing significant benefit for people everywhere, for everyone to study the Tiantai teachings in the years to come, as this would be valuable for all. So I was very happy at the time. Actually, sometimes what we call auspicious circumstances can play an unimaginable, significant, and truly important role in our future practice, or potentially as we move forward on our journey ahead. It can have effects beyond what we can imagine. So this time, we are using a Tibetan version as the standard. Why is this the case? In fact, if we look at it from an academic and historical perspective, as you all know, there are many people studying the Lotus Sutra nowadays, and internationally, the number is also, as you can see, indeed quite significantly large. In places such as Europe and America, particularly in countries like Germany and Austria, which are well known for their rich cultural history and traditions, this is especially evident. Some university professors there have already started researching the Lotus Sutra in its Sanskrit version about 100 years ago. They studied it based on the Sanskrit version. Later on, some scholars from Japan and India also began to study it. During their research, they discovered that even just the Sanskrit versions from India, some historical records say that there are approximately about 40 distinct and different Sanskrit versions, while others say there are more than 60. In any case, there are a great many of them. Among these, some are, in particular, Nepalese language versions, some from Xinjiang, and some are from Kashmir, versions from Kashmir, Xinjiang. They are early versions. These ancient manuscripts, which have been carefully studied by historians and scholars, are believed to have been created and written during a period that dates back to approximately the 4th or. The Nepalese version is, in general, considered to be more reliable by experts. Many historians and scholars believe that its ancient and mysterious manuscript dates back to approximately the 11th century AD, which is nearly 1,000 years ago. Later on, when researchers meticulously studied the ancient Sanskrit manuscripts preserved in Tibet, there used to be a Sanskrit manuscript at Sakya Monastery in Tibet. Later on, it seems that was in the 80s. The Library of the Nationalities, Cultural Palace, already published it. The state regards it as one of its most precious treasures. There is also, as well, a Sanskrit version which can be found in the Potala Palace, and Noble Inca has 2 different versions as well. You could say there are 4 versions. Among these 4 versions of the Lotus Sutra, notably, the one we are working with now has 27 chapters. They're all the same in this regard. In China, there are also different Chinese versions. Back in the Western Jin dynasty, there was a translator named Dharmaraksha who produced a version, but the version he translated was not the original text. Instead, it was a version that had been preserved through an Indian palm leaf manuscript, which was a traditional way of recording important texts in India. However, some of the wording in it is quite difficult to understand. This is what we often refer to commonly and simply as the proper Dharma Lotus Sutra, in fact. There is another version, the one we use now, translated by Kumarajiva. This book is widely circulated in China. This book is also indeed very famous. In fact, it is renowned throughout the world. There is yet another version that appeared later on. Kumarajiva lived during the period in Chinese history known as the Northern and Southern dynasties, a time marked by political division and cultural change. Later, during the Sui dynasty, two Indian translators compiled another version. This is what we now commonly refer to, especially in the context of modern Buddhist scholarship, as the supplemented Lotus Sutra. The Saddharma Pundarika Sutra is actually a kind of compilation. It is mainly or primarily based on Kumarajiva's version. Some missing sections were added in the middle. So this time, I have taken the different Tibetan versions that I could find as far as I was able to find, and the various Chinese versions, and compare them all together anew. During the process of comparison, if we take 27 chapters of the Tibetan version as the standard, this is actually very good. Of course, as you might expect, perhaps schools like Tan Tai, for example, or indeed certain individual masters in particular, may have different opinions. I've also read some other research and papers before, but in fact, actually, we can put it this way. When studying history or engaging in debate, we should above all prioritize fairness and truth. It's not being biased just because I am Tibetan and Tibetan texts are important to me. Han, Chinese texts matter, or I'm from a region, I should prioritize the version from my own region. There is no such thinking. However, it is true that some aspects of Tibetan, such as the translation style and certain traditions, are extremely rigorous. Especially when it comes to our Tibetan translations. During the reign of King Trisong Detsen, there were three great translators who are historically recognized as Ka, Chok, and Shang. Chokho Lugyen Tsen, Kava Palsek, and Shang Yeshe Di. The Lotus Sutra translated Shang Yeshe Di. He worked closely together with Indian Panditas to translate and finalize it. Now, speaking globally, it can be said that all of these, basically everything we just mentioned, all Sanskrit manuscripts that have been carefully preserved throughout history, and all available known versions, Chinese versions, as well as some other Tibetan versions, including a few additional related texts. The Tibetan version can be considered extremely reliable as it has been carefully preserved and maintained with. Some of the different methods within it should also be well-founded and thoroughly justified with clear reasoning. As for why we made some slight changes this time, well, to put it simply, there were just a few minor adjustments. For example, in the Chinese version, the Devadatta chapter is separate, but it does not exist in the Tibetan version. And in the Tibetan version, the entrustment chapter is the last one at the end. Chinese tradition isn't last chapter. Later, we see the so-called entrustment chapter is which disciples and sentient beings did the Buddha entrust the entrustment chapter to at that time. This is something that should be very clear to absolutely everyone, indeed, in any sutra. Therefore, during our study in particular, we should, for the most part, follow this version, which is actually very good and excellent. That's one reason. Another reason is that when I recite it later, I will recite the lineage every day. I won't recite it. I will recite a few Tibetan words, Saddharma Pundarika Sutra. Other than I won't recite anything else. So in the future, this time, my main purpose is to explain things to every that's one aspect. I can't say much. But more importantly, I want you to hear the sound of the Tibetan version of the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra. I want to bring this incredible sound to your ears right now. And before you pass away, before you leave this world, to transmit this precious lineage to you, this is very important. The Kangyo lineage in Tibet, from the Indian Panditas all the way to each Lotsawa translator, passed among masters, generation after generation. This has been thoroughly recorded. It's not saying I have the lineages, or It's not like that it's about every single word. Moreover, when receiving lineage in the region of Tibet specifically, traditionally, as is customary, there was once a great master in Tibet, and when he was reciting the lineage, if someone in the audience happened to cough quite loudly, he would immediately stop. Then he would carefully recite it for you again once more, from the very beginning. If he heard the sound of crows in the middle, he would also immediately stop and start over again. Not a single word was missed. This is how the lineage was passed down, with such care. So many lineages of the Kangyur were transmitted in this way. You see, when crows call, as you might have noticed, something quite interesting actually happens. In fact, it probably doesn't really interrupt the lineage at all. We can sometimes treat the sound of crows as pleasant background music. Caw, honestly, really shouldn't actually be a problem at all. There's no need to stop. You don't need to worry either. So this time, for the first few to 10 odd minutes or so, approximately each and every single day, almost without exception, nearly every time, I will be transmitting to everyone the important content that was covered on that particular day. While studying the Medicine Buddha Sutra, many people would open their computers. People in our institute were better. Even if they couldn't understand the transmission, they felt embarrassed to get up and leave in the middle of it. It was still considered acceptable. But as for others, I heard that they were eager to gain something. But as soon as they heard me reciting something, they thought, what is this person chanting? I don't understand, and immediately closed it. This clearly demonstrates that you really truly don't actually fully understand the actual meaning of transmission. It shouldn't be like this. During these 10 minutes, if you listen attentively to this sound, it is meaningful for you. And actually, whether you receive the transmission or not, believe in blessings, significant different. If I didn't get the Lotus Sutra, and I explain it, in my heart, it feels like there's no real difference between me and you. I feel we are the same. It's just that I read a book and I have a little advantage over you in that I've prepared the lesson beforehand. Otherwise, I'm just like you. But if I have already worked very hard indeed to successfully receive this important transmission from another master, if I got this word for word intact, and now I pass it on to you, then I think that within my own continuum, there should be a rather special and unique blessing. This blessing can then be gently planted in your own mind, allowing it to grow. There is such an incredible power. This is transmission. When we have the opportunity later, we can specifically talk about why transmission is so important. Once you have received the transmission, you have truly obtained the Dharma. For example, if I have the transmission of the Lotus Sutra, and you listen to the entire transmission without any interruption, and everything is complete, then in the end you have truly received this transmission. But if you have many interruptions in between, listening only sporadically, then you really haven't genuinely, truly heard it. We place importance on these aspects. Of course, nowadays, as we all know, with the internet, sometimes it may be that when listening online, on one hand, it's convenient, all can access online, but on the other hand, sometimes there are interruptions. Teaching the Medicine Buddha Sutra, there were often times when people couldn't hear it at all. If there's an opportunity, we can repeat it or find another good way. We can decide on this depending on the situation. In any case, everyone must take the transmission seriously. If you are in any place, let's say you missed 20 lines from the 3rd chapter of the Lotus Sutra, you can make a note of that section. In the future, at the Institute, it doesn't necessarily have to be me, any individual who is simply currently in possession of the transmission at that particular moment in time, and if you listen in their presence, if their demeanor and all aspects inspire your confidence, then you can receive the transmission from such a person. Because when receiving a transmission, at the very least, you should regard them as your teacher and you are the recipient. If you dislike them, in front of that person, if you receive a transmission today and slander them tomorrow, that's also not very good. The Lotus Sutra concludes that you do not speak about the teacher. Even if they have faults, you should mention them or you yourself will fall ill. There are many aspects like this. So generally, why do I wish to teach the Lotus Sutra? If I teach the Lotus Sutra to you, I don't have any enemies to begin with. So there really shouldn't be any obstacles or adversaries, because simply, in many cases, including Dharma teachers in future, those spread Lotus Sutra, it should be that everyone, absolutely everyone, including celestial beings and dragon kings, are protecting them every day. If anyone disrespects them, if anyone treats them badly, then invisibly, these beings will also impose punishments on those people. This is not something I said, it's actually what the Buddha said. And the Buddha didn't just say it once. During my research, over the course of my work, I saw many places where it was said like this. So when we listen to the Lotus Sutra, it is important that everyone takes this matter seriously. Taking it seriously means paying attention, understanding the possible consequences, and making thoughtful decisions. If we do not treat it with the seriousness it deserves, the other day I was outside and put out some fruit, and now they also give me some. But honestly, I don't really eat it. It's just way too cold for me here, so forget it. It's already unbearably cold without eating fruit. I guess eating it would make it even worse. Just now, I was saying, why do we talk about the Lotus Sutra? Some of us may often read the Lotus Sutra. Usually we have the Lotus Sutra for attaining Buddhahood, the Śrāvaka Sutra for enlightenment, and the Avatamsaka Sutra for the ultimate reality. Specifically Chinese saying that among all the Buddhist sutras, these three great sutras are called the kings of sutras. The Lotus Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Śrāvaka Sutra. There is such a saying as well, as people often mention. Why is that? Because they truly possess such great, inconceivable merits and absolutely extraordinary virtues. Without a doubt, for these merits, if we only read and recite the words, we may not necessarily obtain them. Even though just listening, reciting, or simply copying it down, these actions give great merit. But the true merit is something we hope to understand, what exactly is taught in this sutra. Otherwise, like the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch we studied last year, there was a Chan master named Pheda. He became a monk when he was 7 years old and recited the Lotus Sutra daily, having chanted it 3,000 times. Later, the Sixth Patriarch told him that if you do not understand the true meaning of the sutra, then even if you read it 10,000 times, it may not necessarily be beneficial. That's what was said at the time as well. If our minds are confused, we are turned by the Lotus Sutra. If our minds are awakened, we turn the Lotus Sutra. If the mind is enlightened and truly comprehends the meaning of the Lotus Sutra, so through everyone's thorough, careful, and dedicated study during this time, we should be clear about what exactly is taught in the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra has been held in such high regard for so many years. Look at the Northern and Southern dynasties period. I saw, as I recall, in some Chinese historical records, it is said that there were more than 70 different commentaries on the Lotus Sutra. At that time, it was very popular. Later, after Kumarajiva's translation, it became even more popular. Because Kumarajiva is regarded as the patriarch of the 8 major schools today, after he actively promoted this idea to a wider audience, its influence and impact grew significantly, especially Master Jizé of the Tiantai school. As everyone knows, Master Jizé was also at a very young age. His master, a highly respected figure, was named Huizi. Huizi gave him the Lotus Sutra. At first, he didn't really understand it. One time, he slowly started reading this fascinating book. When he got to the chapter on the past deeds of medicine King Bodhisattva, at that moment, he entered samadhi, a meditative state. This meditation is called the gentle, calming, and deeply relaxing Lotus Samadhi. Then, while in this deep and peaceful meditative state, he gradually found himself at the sacred mountain called Vulture Peak. The Buddha was expounding the Lotus Sutra to them. The entire grand assembly at Vulture Peak for the Lotus Sutra had not dispersed. After coming out of his meditation, he told his master about it. What you see is, in fact, truly real. Only you have realized such a state. Only I understand this principle. Because when the Buddha was expounding the Lotus Sutra in the past, we were also among those with karmic affinity at that time. So, relying on this power from past lives in particular, Master Jizé truly comprehended the meaning of the Lotus Sutra. Later, he authored the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, the textual commentary on the Lotus Sutra, and the great calming and contemplation. This corresponds to what we call listening, contemplation, and practice in Tibetan Buddhism. They provide explanations both in terms of the text and the meaning. Later, calming and contemplation mean practice. In the Tiantai school, integrating listening, contemplation, and practice is strong. Some schools may only discuss theory without addressing actual practice. But the Tiantai school has always combined both in its teachings and practices throughout its history, right up to the present day. Even now, many great masters and practitioners of the Tiantai school continue to attain enlightenment through the Lotus Sutra. Countless people have truly realized the mind's original nature in this way. So the main purpose or reason that we really need to understand, especially behind this process, in this particular context, is that I really hope everyone will read more related commentaries this time. Recently, I haven't had much time to go through many materials, including preparing for this class. It is extremely necessary. For example, when we study the Lotus Sutra during the year, whether you are a layperson or a monastic, if needed, you should seek out many other great masters from the Indian and Tibetan traditions. In the past, Indian master Vasubandhu, there should be some notes on the preface and expedient means. In China, there are many annotations and sub-commentaries. There is also the ninth patriarch of the Tiantai school. He provided explanations of the Lotus, and then recently, I remember early on I also came across Master Xuanhua, who taught it at the City of 10,000 Buddhas in the United States. That was in the 1970s, and it lasted over 2 years. At that time, his teachings became a thick volume. This must have been a very long time ago indeed. Sometimes I still remember that thick book, Asida's Lotus Sutra quotes. I didn't really understand, so I kept flipping back and forth through it. At that time, there was simply no way to go online, but later I managed to find one. Although Master Xuanhua sometimes didn't fully understand Vajrayana Buddhism, and in some places his explanations weren't quite accurate, still, some of his points, for example, prostrating and promoting the Lotus Sutra aspects, admirable. Judged by merits, his explanations too were very thorough, going through the text word by word. This should have been in the 1970s. Then, probably in the 80s, Venerable Master Ching Kung also lectured on the Lotus Sutra. It was about 66 sessions in total. There are also many renowned and great modern masters who have studied the Lotus Sutra in depth as well. As I mentioned earlier, from the perspective of a practitioner, this approach is completely different from that of a researcher. What is a researcher like? They look at the year in the common era. What was the social and historical background at that time? Could you provide a more detailed explanation of what the social situation was like in China during that particular period in history? I am interested, what impact did the Lotus Sutra have on society? How many chapters does it have, and why is the first chapter the way it is? What kind of status did it hold in Sanskrit in India, and so on? This is typically the way they conduct their research. So it's different from our approach to study. When we study it today, I think we should mainly focus on aspects like practice and merit in particular, as well as this is very important. But it's also necessary when giving teachings or explaining the sutra to cover some related aspects of this sutra, including its history and translation, circumstances, its impact on society, and its influence among practitioners. We must understand these things. If we don't, and only accept it based on faith without questioning it, then if perhaps someone happens to inquire about it at some point, just in case, who actually translated the Lotus Sutra? How many translation versions there are and how many chapters it has? Nowadays, a lot of people especially like to ask about numbers. How many chapters does it have exactly? How many of this or that do you know? What are the teachings specifically discussed within it? And in detail, what do you personally think about them? How do you feel about them? And so on. At such times, as researchers and practitioners, we need to understand these things. From a Buddhist perspective, listening and contemplating can be called study and familiarization search and repeated practice. As for actual practice, in today's so-called academic circles, it basically doesn't exist. So I think when it comes to the Lotus Sutra, in particular, whether it's the translations themselves or the teachings themselves, in particular, they are indeed truly extremely profound. So today we are just going to have a conversation about the Tibetan title with everyone here right now in this video, together with all of you, actually. That is the scripture known as the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Dharma. In Tibetan, it is called White Lotus, while in Chinese, it is known as Lotus Flower. Wonderful Dharma, wonderful, is also explained in the treatise on the ornament of the sutras. It says that the beginning is good, the middle is good, and the end is good, everything about it is good. Or it refers to the beauty of its words and phrases, the beauty of its meaning, as well as its perfection, flawlessness, completeness, and so on. There are many aspects. In the past, Master Jize, after he was fully enlightened through the Lotus Sutra, he lectured on the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Dharma in Nanjing. He spent 90 days just explaining the word wonderful. So this is actually called the 90 days of expounding the sublime, that's the saying. He spent 90 days on a single word. I probably won't talk for 90 days or even 90 minutes about it. If you are, especially when you're young, you really, really enjoy doing these things. For example, among Khenpos in Tibetan Buddhism, Introduction to the Path of Wisdom and the Bodhisattva title took several classes, and the Bodhisattva title took several classes because many young Dharma teachers seek fame. Others say, wow, this person is truly amazing. Without even looking at the text, they can lecture for hours with their eyes closed. Wow, welcome, welcome, that's really impressive. People are like this. But generally, as people get older and more mature, they mainly talk about practice, summarizing and synthesizing things maybe in this regard. It's not necessarily about the words themselves. When I started after a few months at the Institute, then went out to spread the Dharma, nightly memorized scripture. And the next day, I would proudly use those citations in front of them, watched expressions of people below to see if they would be impressed. But whether they are impressed or not isn't that important. When we Dharma teachers teach, the most important thing is to help the audience truly understand using language that is simple and easy to grasp so they can gain some benefit. That might be very important. Otherwise, in some situations, it could make a significant difference. I also admire Master Jize. If you discuss the word miao, wondrous, it's hard to know how to elaborate on it. For 90 days straight, honestly, that's just a bit much. Speaking on the wondrous for 90 sessions is not that easy to accomplish, but it's still truly extraordinary and impressive, considering the dedication and effort involved. I want to talk about the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma. Miao, wonderful means supreme, and this Dharma is Mahayana Buddhism. As for the lotus flower, when the lotus blooms, actually the seed pod and the flower appear at the same time. In this way, cause and effect, cause comes first, effect follows. But there's also a natural law where cause and effect manifest simultaneously. This is why the lotus flower is used as a symbol. Moreover, in Buddhism, some of the most supreme teachings use the lotus flower. The lotus is unstained, pure. It carries many such symbolic meanings indeed. So, in a very real sense, this sutra can be said to be the Buddha's final teaching, his legacy. In other words, the Dharma that we can truly accomplish, the Lotus Sutra. Therefore, we must all rely on understanding its words and receiving the blessings of its lineage. As well as the incredible power of your own faith, all conditions present. Just having faith alone isn't enough. You also need diligence and effort. Just having diligence and faith alone is also not enough. This includes the blessings from the Guru and the lineage as well, and the inherent power of the Dharma itself. When all these conditions come together, we will each attain different levels of spiritual accomplishment. This is a brief introduction to the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma. As for the translator, it was in particular Kumarajiva who translated it. Kumarajiva, a renowned Buddhist scholar and translator, was originally from the region known today as Xinjiang, which is located in the far western part of China. This area, historically significant for its cultural diversity, was his birthplace. Regarding the story of Kumarajiva, in particular, I have mentioned some of it before when discussing other sutras and treatises. Today, I won't go into detail, just briefly mention it. In fact, he was a truly exceptionally gifted individual I recall that he began monastic life at the age of 7. Moreover, from a very young age, he consistently demonstrated truly remarkable and unique insights and thoughtful perspectives into the study of Sanskrit. Indeed, he was self-taught, possessing such an ability without a teacher. His father, who was known by the name of Kumarayana, he was in fact actually serving as the prime minister to a king in India. Originally, this prime minister held a very high position, but he did not desire official rank and later became a monk. After ordaining, he eventually traveled to Xinjiang. At that time, there were the 16 kingdoms. After Qin Shi Huang unified China, later on, the country eventually split apart once again, breaking into separate regions. That period was one of chaos and turmoil, extremely unstable. If we look at Kumarajiva's biography, we can see era was one in which he experienced many setbacks and difficulties. It was really not easy for him. When his father arrived in the Xinjiang region, the local king received him with great respect, warm generosity, and hospitality. His appearance was extremely dignified. Then, the king's sister there, princess, who was known for her kindness, also developed a deeply and genuinely special kind of faith in him, different from others. Later on, he gradually and eventually returned once again to lay life. After he returned to lay life, Kumarajiva's mother, who had been living with him, soon became pregnant. This event marked a significant turning point in their lives. After she became pregnant, she was different from before. From that time on, his mother possessed a truly extraordinary and remarkable wisdom. Moreover, she originally did not understand Sanskrit, but she could now speak fluent Sanskrit effortlessly. Later, a wise sage said, Shariputra had experienced a similar situation. After he entered his mother's womb for the first time, his mother became proficient in languages she never knew before. But after he was born, all of that disappeared. It seems that your child might be someone who is destined for something quite unique. Indeed, shortly after he was born, at that particular point in time, his mother, due to the circumstances, was no longer able to speak Sanskrit. But when Kumarajiva was young, his mother felt renunciation and wanted to become a nun. When she became a nun, her father disapproved. He said, when I wanted to be a monk, you wouldn't let me live as a monastic. Now you want to become a nun? That's unreasonable. He was extremely opposed to it. Later, it seems they had another child. I don't remember clearly read about it before, there were some details. But later, his mother's resolve for renunciation seemed to become even stronger. She kept witnessing birth, aging. She felt that all worldly pursuits were meaningless. Later, she insisted on becoming a nun. Her husband, after much discussion, still refused to agree. When he wouldn't agree, she began a hunger strike in protest. She went 6 days without eating. When she was truly on the verge of death, her husband had to relent. He couldn't bear it. He let her become a nun. Mother was smart. Agreeing wasn't enough. You have to find someone to shave my head and put me in monastic robes only, then will I eat again. He eventually agreed to everything, and then his mother became a nun. After she eventually became a nun, his mother went to India. Indians came to China. She took Kumarajiva with her to India. In India, Kumarajiva learned Sanskrit and later returned to his homeland. After returning, the reason he was so brilliant was that at that time, was it in some particular country or maybe somewhere else? I honestly can't quite remember. In one of those small countries, he became a national treasure. But you should really be aware of this history. There used to be different ones. Then, for Kumarajiva, other countries even started fighting wars. The purpose of these wars wasn't to seize wealth or anything. It was to seize a person to capture Kumarajiva. Translators like him were extremely rare, so everyone sought him out. Later on, at some point in time, it is quite possible that it seems that someone unfortunately died on the way during the journey. The road is still winding. In the end, there was a king who truly believed deeply in Buddhism. He requested Kumarajiva to translate a large number of sutras and treatises. It was then that the 8 schools began to revive, but Kumarajiva was His translations possessed an incredible blessing power. When he passed away, he said, "If the sutras and treatises I translated do not accord with the true meaning of the scriptures, then let my body burn to ash completely. But if my translations are correct, if I made no mistakes in my translations, I hope that my tongue will not be burned." Later, during the solemn cremation, his tongue astonishingly remained perfectly intact. It was preserved as the stupa of the tongue relic. Even today, there are still different accounts and perspectives about this. Previously, Master Dao Xuan, because Master Dao Xuan, as everyone who studies the Vinaya knows, he kept the precepts purely, was that heavenly beings would often offer him food. Asked Celestial, why are the sutras translated by Kumarajiva, like the Diamond Sutra, have been so widely and extensively circulated, while other translators' works are not like that? Why is this the case? When he asked the celestial being replied, it's because Kumarajiva's translations were enlightenment first. In other words, he had already attained, and the words spoken by an enlightened person, the texts he produced, are accepted by successors, sentient beings benefiting from them is growing. Therefore, the main content of our teaching this time will be based primarily on Kumarajiva's translation. In addition, I have added slightly some content from the supplemented Lotus Sutra. If certain parts are truly missing in the Tibetan version, I used supplemented Lotus Sutra. However, this does not mean altering any Buddhist sutra. There is nothing like that. Because since the Tibetan version, whether per academic research or the rigorous translation tradition established by King Trizon Detsen, we know current versions in the Tripitaka, the translations that I just mentioned earlier. Indeed, these translators are very, very remarkable. Later, Mipham Rinpoche and Rongzom Pandita all called these translators sages. They are, if not sages, it would have been impossible to translate such profound teachings. So we are especially fortunate this time, because on one hand, we have the Tibetan translations notably produced during the era of King Trisong Detsen. We can all have clean. On my side as well, actually some time ago, from an old Lama, since I previously did not have the lineage transmission of the Tripitaka, at that time, our institute invited the Tulku from Dema Monastery. His Holiness asked him to give the transmission. At that time, I wanted to receive the transmissions. But at that time, because His Holiness was preparing to go to Mount Wutai and to Daofu to visit more than 70 in total monasteries, I actually didn't have to go. But later it seemed that if I didn't go, there would be no travel expenses. My mindset wasn't really very good at the time back then, because Mount Wutai was 0 yuan. So at that time, if I hadn't gone, I probably wouldn't have been able to go to Mount Wutai. In order to save up for travel expenses, His Holiness also agreed to let me go with him. So I really ended up actually just going there with His Holiness. While spreading the Dharma, I also received some blessed items along the way. All went well. Otherwise, I might not have truly formed a connection with many sentient beings in the Han region. I missed the Tripitaka broadcast. His Holiness agreed. Receiving the Tripitaka is hard. He received Tripitaka. During the first month, His Holiness said, "In my entire life, this is extremely rare, truly extraordinary." To hear such profound teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, how joyful it is. He remained in a state of joy throughout the first month. In the second month, he didn't feel as much joy, but he still listened very attentively. In third month, he wondered, when will this end? It was especially cold winter. At that time, he was always hoping it would end soon. By the third month, His Holiness said he received the 3-month transmission of the Tripitaka. His mindset was constantly different each month. At that time, he observed who among us would stay to listen and who would leave with him. Those who went with him were a few Khenpos with special qualifications and spots. Later, I made the decision to carefully prepare for the upcoming trip to Mount Wutai, taking some time to plan ahead. Then I went along with His Holiness as planned. Afterwards, at Durmang Monastery with an old Lama there, for a while I listened for about 2 days or so, just to see how it would go, starting from the early hours of the morning, right when the day begins. I had surgery, my health wasn't good. Lama was strict. He said, if you're not in severe pain, don't move. Just listen attentively the whole time. In this way, you can effectively purify your negative karma. Yes, that's right. But honestly, sometimes I really couldn't sit or lie down. It was still very painful. But I really endured it the whole time and managed to complete listening in just 2.5 days. So for this transmission I'm giving everyone, the lineage should be very pure. Although the first time I listened, I didn't have it, and even now it's the same. Same when I listened to Diamond Sutra. I received this transmission from Khenpo Dewa. So today I really just briefly want to... What time is it now? Let me just check the time. Honestly, I can't really make out the time here either. It's just not clear to me. That should be fine, right? I don't see any reason why there would be a problem. Everything seems to be in order, so it should be okay to go ahead, don't you think? What was I going to say? Lotus Sutra title. Then I talked about Kumarajiva, and what else was there? The computer I brought here, the rest isn't really necessary. That's fine too. In essence, what we already understand is that the fundamental point has been established. To put it simply, we are aware of the basic. As for the translator, you all have some materials. Take a look at them as well. Kumarajiva was, without a doubt, truly remarkable. Later, among his faithful disciples, he also manifested various miraculous powers. There are many legends of him, but I won't discuss them here. Let's understand a few things. One is the Lotus Sutra. Among all Buddhist sutras, it is the King Sutra with immense merit. This year, we are beginning to study the Tiantai tradition. In this rare human existence, these are the very teachings that the Buddha himself left for us. This is also, without a doubt, very important for each and every one of us, because it truly matters to all of us in our daily lives. At the same time, we should feel grateful to the translators of previous generations. When I read scriptures, I'm thankful for these translators. For example, Kumarajiva, who is widely regarded as one of the 4 great, highly influential Buddhist translators, along with Zhendi, Yijing, and Tang Xuanzang, as well as Kumarajiva himself. Not long ago, when we discussed the Medicine Buddha Sutra, we also talked about this. If it weren't for their translations, we truly would have no way to access these teachings. So I am grateful to these translators. They have used different languages to teach us. This is also indeed extremely important. Therefore, today, first of all, each and every one of you should truly have a really joyful and very positive heart in your lives. Lotus Sutra, don't know how many sessions it'll take. My initial plan, as I currently envision and estimate it, is that it will be at most within a total of 100 individual sessions overall, maybe around 50 or 60 sessions. Sometimes when it comes to directly reciting the lineage, you can study it on your own. Where there's room for elaboration, I can elaborate. That's roughly how it will be. It won't be as extensive as before, like Bodhikaryāvatara. If it were extensive, you would be quite busy, and so would I. If we're all constantly busy, ultimately, in the end, we just become aimless. So we'll do our best, and you as well. Of course, everyone is indeed very attentive when listening to the teaching, especially the efforts made by people in different places, from all walks of life. It's really not easy. No matter what, I am still very delighted and happy. If we can form positive connection with this sutra, no need to explain. As we continue studying, we will come to realize, when this sutra appears in the human world, it simply must be read. Master Hanshan also said before, if you don't read the Lotus Sutra, you simply can't develop compassion for sentient beings. If you don't read the Shurangama Sutra, you can't understand the mind. perspectives vary. So as we continue, we should still approach our study and learning with this profound sense of joy, sincere respect, and heartfelt devotion. We should learn with this kind of attitude. During studying, don't start off strong and end weak. At the beginning, you're extremely enthusiastic. Just like earlier, the Dharma King, I'm sure the Dharma King was demonstrating this. First month filled with joy. By the second or third month, you're hoping for it to finish soon. Actually, many of us have this problem. Some people say, when will the Lotus Sutra teachings begin? But in the end, how many people truly see it through? We can't say, but that's not big. In Buddha time 5, then if 50,000 of us withdraw, that's acceptable too. There's no problem with that. So we can all accept this. Overall, we all have a rare and precious opportunity. Human life is rare, death is impermanent, and meeting the Dharma is uncommon. There are many truly profound teachings, wisdom, and lessons that everyone should carefully engrave in their hearts, remembering them always. So, as for the rest, I won't say more tonight. Next, let's dedicate the merit using the Samantabhadra's aspiration of good deeds. Dedication. My mother's name is Ren Kuo, and she just passed away yesterday. I hope you can also offer your blessings and dedicate the merit to her. There's nothing else.
Bandara Badna Sadarda Bandara Badna Sada Bandara Badna Sadarda